On top of the threat of the Purple Line in terms of displacement and the impact of the pandemic on the community, the construction disruptions that are now looking like they will be longer than we had originally hoped, are also creating real challenges for people in terms of quality of neighborhood life and in terms of small businesses where this is really impeding traffic for customers. So small businesses, again, they're struggling. There are about 4,500 small businesses within a half-mile of the Purple Line corridor, and many of them, because of COVID-related shutdowns or construction disruptions, have been closing. And looking ahead to the next few months, there is a good likelihood that we're going to see increased regulation and more reductions in capacity and potentially more shutdowns as we see COVID cases rising in our region. So 2020 has been an incredibly tough year for the Purple Line corridor, but for the broader community. However, we are closing the year with a sense of optimism that the year ahead is going to be better, that we have that we are in a really strong position and on a stronger footing to do the work that needs to be done in the year ahead. And there are a couple of reasons that I want to highlight for that. So the coalition is larger and more organized than it ever has been. On our steering committee alone, we have nonprofit service providers, public agencies, elected officials, organizing bodies, anchor institution in Kaiser Permanente, as well as my employer, the University of Maryland. But we also work with developers, property owners, banks, faith communities, folks on the ground who can really be partners in taking these big ideas to action. In the year ahead, we also want to be engaging more deeply with community members and small businesses who are most directly affected by the issues that we're working on and by the work that we do. So there are a lot of people and groups that are included in the we of PLCC, but I do want to give a particular thanks to the PLCC steering committee. These 14 groups not only do really important work along the corridor, but are also helping to lead the thinking and the work of creating and executing on a shared agenda. So we've also been really successful this past year in attracting collective investment. You'll hear a little bit later today from the collaborative that is working on affordable housing and small business lending with support of a $5 million JP Morgan Chase Pro Neighborhoods grant. Over $1 million have been invested in affordable housing in partnership with Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente is not just a leading thinker and stakeholder in this work along the corridor, but a significant investor in affordable housing as well as other work in Greater Riverdale. The Federal Transit Administration has awarded the MTA with National Center for Smart Growth as a lead, a $2 million grant to support planning efforts that are going to underpin our strategies across goals moving forward. We've also gotten additional support from groups like the Center for Community Investment, Prince George's and Montgomery counties, U.S. Economic Development and Administration, and we know many more funders are at the table supporting some of the individual partners doing work along the corridor. So although we need more resources to execute on our ambitious goals, we're on a really strong footing to make some really significant impact in the year ahead. So as Garrett said, 3 years ago, many of you were involved with creating the Community Development Agreement for the Purple Line Corridor, which laid out a big vision of equitable development along the corridor with a focus on affordable housing, small business, workforce development, and thriving communities. And although in that 3 years, a lot has changed, our big goals have not. So although the circumstances, particularly in 2020, have changed the way that we are approaching the work, the long-term goal continues to be an equitable Purple Line corridor. It's not going to be possible for us to share everything that's happening along the corridor in the time that we have today, but I'm going to share just a few highlights of what's been happening to move the community development agreement forward. So in the area of affordable housing, the Housing Accelerator Action Team has been doing really incredible work to get to move affordable housing, to move units into the preservation or affordable housing production pipeline. So a little less than a year ago, we put out a housing action plan that laid out a vision for zero net loss of the 17,000 units that are currently affordable to households making less than $70,000 a year along the corridor. And this past year, we have conducted a deep dive analysis on what are the properties that are ripe for preservation and production opportunities. We are hiring a housing coordinator who's actually going to be knocking on doors and recruiting properties to actually get into that pipeline to move us towards that 17,000. And we are actively working to attract the capital to move on the housing work. So that work is moving forward really effectively, in addition to policy work that's going to be underpinning that. Our small business team has been really active this past year as well. We have an action plan that's going to be coming out within the next couple of months that charts the course forward for preserving the small businesses, small micro businesses, especially those that are owned by immigrants, by people of color, and those that are in the lower income areas of the corridor. So there will be opportunity to plug into that plan. So stay tuned for details on that. In the area of workforce and thriving communities, we are getting some work up and running, some projects up and running in those two spaces. But what I really want to highlight here is that we are refocusing on the opportunity of the Purple Line. Given the challenges that we've seen with construction this past year, we are refocusing again on what the Purple Line is going to mean to communities. So the Purple Line itself is a workforce development strategy in that it's going to get job seekers to where the jobs are, especially if you think about the areas of the corridor that are currently underserved by transit. In the area of thriving communities, the goal is really thinking about quality of neighborhood life, including pedestrian safety, including connectivity, those types of issues, in addition to arts and culture. But foundational to that is the fact that people are living with construction sites in their neighborhoods right now. And it's important for us to then be a strong ally and a strong partner to our friends at the state who are doing hard work to get the Purple Line to the finish line. So there are more details in our 2020 progress report, which you should have received, and we'll be sending it out again. But we definitely encourage you to take a read of that document, which includes a lot more detail on what we've been up to this past year. So 2020 has also pushed us, and particularly the Black Lives Matter movement has pushed us to think about whether as individuals or as a collective, what are places in a history that's being written right now around racial equity. And so the Purple Line Corridor Coalition is also committing, although we have had equity as a central focus of our work for a long time, we are committing to a deeper exploration of how we can be part of a journey that toward race equity. That includes a look at how we do business, a look at how we measure success, how we define success, who we engage in our work. And we're also going to be exploring our history. And we invite you to join in some of the learning that we're going to be doing. In early 2021, we're going to be hosting a learning event focused on the history of segregation and redlining along the Purple Line corridor. So stay tuned for that event. So in short, 2021 is our year to get to work. We have a lot of work to do, a lot of challenges ahead, but we also, again, are on a really strong footing to collectively do the work that needs to be done. And we're looking forward to working with all of you. It's going to be an all hands on deck effort, and we hope you'll stay engaged with us.